If at first you don't succeed, try, 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 try again. When I first mentioned that I might be making some peppermint meringues, I didn't realize I was putting my foot in my mouth. And when I kept failing and failing, I wondered what the problem would be and thought, why not try something new and try it on camera? So here I am back in the test kitchen to try some peppermint meringues. But did they succeed this time or did they fail? I'm going to be doing a few tests, so that gives you some clue as to some of the results. But was the end product a fail or a success? You're just going to have to wait and find out. Coming up next. Hello and welcome to my test kitchen. My name is Roy. I am a home cook and amateur baker, and I am here on this channel sharing recipes that have helped me to lose over 125 pounds, whether those recipes are mine or someone else's. And yes, you heard me correctly, this is another test kitchen. It wasn't planned to be. I had spoken about working on peppermint meringue cookies, and I was having a lot of failure with them. And I'm not entirely sure why, but the egg whites wouldn't whip up properly. I think I know why, but I'm not sure because I've seen plenty of recipes for peppermint meringues that use peppermint extract. They put it in at the beginning before you start beating the eggs. They put it in the middle, and they put it in at the end. I had trouble with each one. And I think, oh, I don't have any peppermint extract out because I'm not using it. At least that's the test, because peppermint extract has peppermint oil in it. And if you know anything about egg whites, they do not like fats of any kind, and it'll make them not whip up. So I think that was the problem, but there are recipes for it, so people are having success with it. I'm just not sure why I wasn't. So I was going to go with another option where you crush up the peppermint candies and sprinkle them on the top of regular meringues. But Paul suggested that maybe I could grind those peppermint candies into a sugar and use that in place of the sugar. That way I get the peppermint, but I also get the sweetness that we're looking for. So that's what I did here. I took 20, because this is supposed to make 20 meringues. I took 20 candies because one candy would be 0 bites, 0 blue points. So I took 20 just to see. I need a half a cup, and I haven't measured that out yet. And I was also separating my egg whites. And I showed this once before. I have the egg yolks from a few eggs in here. I'm gonna end up using those for French toast because egg yolks are really great if you want something to have some moisture or some richness. Those will be great in French toast. They do not work in meringues. So when you separate your eggs, you cannot get any egg yolk in it because egg yolks contain fat. And so you will crack it into a separate bowl before adding it in with the other egg whites. Otherwise, you'll contaminate those egg whites. The other thing you have to make sure of is that the bowl is clean. Even the oils from your hand, if you get them inside the bowl, that could disrupt the whipping process. So they are temperamental. They're not something to be scared of or overly concerned with having an issue with. Like I failed 3 times with trying to do the peppermint extract, but that's just part of the learning process. So don't worry about trying it. Just try to be as cautious as you can and go from there. What's the worst that can happen? So let me finish separating these eggs. I wanted to show you how I'm gonna put the egg white into one bowl and make sure there is no egg yolk in it before I transfer that over. So I'm just the type who shuffles it back and forth between the eggshells. I've seen a lot of people who do it through their fingers. Yeah, that's not me. I mean, not that I mind getting messy, but not when you have an eggshell right here. That worked out perfectly. No egg yolk. The yolk didn't break, thankfully. So that is going in there. I'm gonna put away the egg yolks, wash my hands, and I'll be right back. Okay, so as I said, I ground up 20 sugar-free peppermint candies, but not all of it broke up. So I'm going to put it through a fine mesh sieve just to make sure I don't get any big chunks in there. And it's definitely very powdery, which is actually beneficial for what we are doing, because the less grainy the sugar, the easier it will be to incorporate into the egg whites. So I'm just going to sift this through and get out any big chunks that might be lingering. Okay, this looks a little too big, so I'm actually going to put it back in and see if I can grind it down a little bit finer and not have to waste any more of it. So give me a second to grind this up as finely as I can, and we'll see how much more I get. Definitely got some of those bigger chunks broken up, so that's good. Hopefully this will be enough so I don't have to go over that 20 candy limit that I gave myself. I mean, you know, I like to try to make my desserts and things as low point as possible. So if I can keep this at a 0 for 1, I'll be happy. Okay, still some big chunks there, but let me see how much I have. I'm gonna set my half-cup measure over this bowl here so that I don't throw stuff all over the place, which you know I tend to do, especially if my arms are not steady, as they are not at the moment. Oh, I think I might get away with it. I will definitely have enough. This is just a scant half cup, just under the line. A little bit more would be helpful. These grains aren't huge, but I do want to break them up. So I'm going to give it one more try and see what we can get out of here. Be right back. That is close enough for me. It is virtually at the top. There's a little mounding, so I'm going with it, 20 candies. So let me clean up this mess. Be right back to start on the egg whites. Okay, so I'm only using 2 egg whites. This should make about 20 meringues, depending on how you pipe them out. I'm going to whip these up, but first I want to add 1/8 of a teaspoon of cream of tartar. Now, if you don't know what cream of tartar is, it is an acid, and it comes from the winemaking process. It's found on the inside of the barrels after winemaking. So it is an acidic component that will actually help to stabilize your egg whites and give them more structure, help with that structure, which should be an insurance policy. So why mine didn't work out, I don't know. If anyone out there has made peppermint meringues and used peppermint extract, let me know when you added it, how it worked out for you, because I added it 3 different stages. Didn't work. And I know it's not the eggs because they came from different batches and they were at room temperature, so I don't know. But anyways, on with our test. We have the 2 egg whites, 1/8 teaspoon of cream of tartar to help stabilize, and 1/8 teaspoon of salt, just regular table salt. Then I'm going to start whipping them up. Fingers crossed that this starts to work. What we're going to do, well, I'll show you once it gets foamy, we're going to start slowly adding in the sugar. Fingers crossed. All right, I'm going to turn down the volume here so you don't have to hear this whining noise. I'm not talking about my voice, I'm talking about the mixer. Anyway, all right, here we go. Okay, I wanted to stop here to show you it's getting nice and foamy. Now we're going to gradually add in the sugar. I just sprinkle it in a little bit at a time as I'm whipping it, because if you put too much sugar in at one time, all of those airy bubbles that we're getting to help make our meringue are gonna be pressed down by the weight of the sugar, and it's just going to interfere with any sort of volume that we're going to get from the eggs. So I'm going to whip this up a little bit more and very gradually start adding in the sugar or the peppermint candies. See, this is exactly what happened the last time. It just became liquid. So it doesn't look like this is going to work either. Well, let me continue and see if anything changes, but it doesn't look good. Nope, this is a fail. This is not working. I don't know exactly what is going wrong. It was as soon as I started adding the sugar-free peppermints that it started to turn liquid. I don't know if maybe it's the artificial sweetener, but I've seen others use artificial sweeteners. So I don't know. I have also done it where I heated it up on the stovetop in a double boiler to let the sugars melt into the egg whites, and that didn't work either. I've made meringues before. That's not the problem. I'm not sure what the problem here is. Do I try heating up the eggs and the sugar together first? I do have the peppermint candies for it. All right, let me clean all of this up. We're going to try one more thing, and if that doesn't work, this is going to be a fail. So I'll be right back. Okay, take two. I am going to try a Swiss meringue process, and that is when you heat up the egg whites and the sugar together and get that sugar melted in there. Now I ground up the peppermint candies again, knowing that 20 would be about 1/2 cup, and I was fine with just doing the 20, not measuring. And I shook it throughout to make sure it was ground nicely, but I don't have to worry about it being too finely ground because it will melt somewhat over the heat. Now I have again my 2 egg whites. I also have 2 eggs over here coming to room temperature. I took them out of the fridge, and if you need them at room temperature quickly, like I did, put them in some hot water and let them sit for 5 minutes or so, and they will become room temperature. They're not going to cook in that amount of time. The cold from the egg is going to cool down the water, and the water is going to warm up the egg. So those are waiting because I don't know, maybe I'm adding the sugar too soon, although I've done that previously, or the sugar replacement. So what Paul suggested is that maybe I should try doing it with regular sugar. Maybe it's something in the artificial sweeteners that's messing this up, and maybe you need to do it in a different way. I haven't found anything like that on websites that I looked at, but this is the test kitchen. I'm testing different possibilities. So here are the egg whites. I'm going to add in my 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt, 1/8 of a teaspoon of cream of tartar. Now, if you don't have cream of tartar, you could get away with using the same amount of lemon juice or vinegar. That acid is what's going to help to stabilize this. You can also, I've heard, use baking powder, because baking powder is cream of tartar mixed with baking soda. So if you used, from what I read, and I haven't tried this, if you used 1.5 times as much of the baking powder, it would give you about the approximate amount of cream of tartar. Don't know if that's true, it's what I read. So I'm going to just quickly whisk this cream of tartar and salt in before I add in all of this sugar, or sugar replacement, peppermint candy, whatever we want to call it. Here I have a pan of simmering water. There's about 1 inch of water there. You do not want the water touching the bottom of the bowl because you want this to be an indirect heat. You don't want it to cook the egg whites. You just want it to warm them gently. And I'm going to add in the sugar replacement, or in this case, the peppermint candies. And we'll see if this one works. Who knows? Okay, so I'm gonna whisk this together. Now, I did look at the package again for these, and there is peppermint oil in these candies. Is that what's making the issue? I don't know. Because like I said, I've never had a problem with meringues before until I started trying to add in artificial sweeteners and peppermint. I believe I've made peppermint before, but maybe I haven't, I don't know. So just gonna heat this up, let some of that sugar melt in and incorporate. You wanna keep this whisking. I mean, not a rapid whisk, just to keep it moving. So the bottom isn't staying on the bottom for too long. It's moving around, warming everything else up. And I'll be back once this is ready, and we'll see if this one's gonna whip up for me. Be right back. Okay, so I have warmed these through. You want to do it until they are warm to the touch, which they are, and a lot of those candies have melted into the egg whites. Now, a Swiss meringue is not as lofty as other meringues. There's also Italian or French. The French version was the original way I was trying to do it, and the Italian version is where you heat up the sugar, and sometimes with some water, and you pour it into the egg whites as they're beating. I've made those before. I've made them all before successfully, but that was with sugar and not peppermint extract, I don't believe. So let's see if this version does any better. Nope, still the same result. I don't know what's going wrong here, but let me do a baseline test with regular sugar and see if I have any issues there. I never have before, so we shall see. I'll be right back. Okay, last chance. Let's try this with real sugar. Yes, I do have real sugar in my house. Gonna add in the 1/8 teaspoon of salt, the 1/8 teaspoon of cream of tartar, and I am going to try adding peppermint extract, but I'm not going to do it until I've checked and make sure the meringues are starting to form, and then we'll see what it does to them. I have that waiting in the wings. I have a 1/4 cup measure here, so I'm just going to do 2 of these as we go along. But first, let's start these eggs whipping. Fingers crossed, 3rd time's the charm. Of course, this is regular sugar, but we'll see. Okay, so see, this is what I should expect to be happening. And it did start to happen before until I started adding in the peppermint candies, which contain peppermint oil. Let's try with sugar. Okay, it's whipping up. You want it at stiff peaks. So the fact that these are drooping, that means it's not quite there yet. You want them to be able to stand right up like they are in the bowl. But they're almost there. What I want to do now is try adding in the peppermint extract and see if it causes any harm here. Okay, so once I added the peppermint extract, it did loosen up. So I think the peppermint oil in there is wreaking havoc, and maybe even the artificial sweetener. But it's a fail this week, sorry to say, because I know I mentioned doing meringues in another video and a lot of people were excited. And I was too. I shouldn't have mentioned them until I'd perfected them. And apparently I am not going to perfect them. So this one, I'm going to give a big fail stamp. Just doesn't work. I don't know how people get it to work with the peppermint extract, because that oil seems to interfere. Like I had nice peaks going on. Once I added in the extract, it kind of all wilted down. So, sorry to say, this is an official fail. Okay, Paul has suggested that I try one last time, but this time do it with the crushed candy on top, like I had originally seen. So, I'm going to give that a shot. He said, this way we'll know for sure. Sorry, my jaw is getting tight. He said this way we'll know for sure that it wasn't the sweetener, which is Swerve, I'm using Swerve, but that it was the peppermint extract. And how other people are using it, I don't know. But let me whip these up and gradually add in the Swerve, and we'll see what we get. Okay, this fluffed up nicely. And it's very stiff. You can see it's holding that stiff peak in the bowl. And they're staying upright when I turn this upside down. So it was not the sweetener. And the recipe I saw didn't say anything about adding any vanilla extract or anything, which I was tempted to do. It just said you sprinkle the candies on top. I'm not going to add any vanilla. I'm just going to sprinkle the candies on, and we will see. All right, so let me move some stuff around and bring in my sheet pan, and we'll get moving. Now you're going to need, you don't have to pipe the meringues on here. You can just spoon them on. I'm going to pipe them. But because the meringue is so sticky, what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of the meringue from the beater on the sheet pan and then stick my parchment paper to that so that it has something to secure itself to, so it's not going to pull up. Just sit that on there, press it into the meringue, and then we're going to transfer this to our piping bag. But I want to do a little star tip so you get that classic little shape from a meringue. This is a 1M from Wilton. Like I said, you don't have to use this. You could also use a Ziploc bag. You don't have to use a piping bag. You don't even have to use a tip. I am going to put my tip in here and push it down as far as it will go, so then I'll know where to cut some of this plastic off. Go just under that line and push the tip out. And now to fill a bag, even if you're using a Ziploc bag, you want to fold it over like this so that you're down towards the bottom of the bag and not getting meringue all through the whole length of the bag. So see, this is nice and foamy. Now this part has worked out so far. And this way it's keeping your hands clean as well. You could also set this into a tall glass while you're doing that, so you don't need to hold it. Okay, that's good. I'm just gonna roll up the sides here. Come on. And then I'm gonna push the meringue down. You wanna get it down towards that tip. Whoa, not that far down towards the tip. But at least it's coming out. All right, so you're going to twist the end of the bag here and then just make your little cookies. You want to give them a little space. So go back to the beginning where they're much smaller. And you can just like basically add on to it. And I crushed up just 15 of those peppermint candies. Okay, so that's 20. Look, this one looks a little small. Let me enhance you a little bit. And you. Now, like I said, you don't have to use the star tip. You can get away with just using a baggie. You could just spoon it on if you want. They don't have to be perfection. So just gonna sprinkle the candies on. And some of it will fall off onto the parchment paper. That's fine. You just want to make sure that your cookies all have a little sprinkling on them. And it's okay if some of them are bigger chunks, although I'm trying not to get too many big chunks on here. And actually 15 might be a lot. Might have been able to get away with 10. Because see, I still have quite a bit left in this bag, and they're all covered. So these are going to go into the oven for about an hour to an hour and a half. Then what you want to do is turn off the oven and just let them sit in there. If you can let them sit in there overnight, even better. So it's right now 340, so I may end up letting them sit at least until I go to bed, because that way you want them as dry as possible. So the oven is preheated to 250 degrees. You want it kind of low. I've seen some at 225, some at 200, and those baked longer. I'm trying for 250, and I think I'll give it an hour the first time, check them, and then see where we go from there. But so far, so good. All right, I'll be back when they come out. Okay, here we have the test results. And they're looking a little browner than I would have expected. But, I mean, they look good, they feel good. Now you notice I didn't have to bring this over with my oven mitts because it was in the oven for about an hour, and then I turned the oven off and left them in there for another 2 hours. You should leave the door slightly ajar. That way it lets them dry out slowly, not bringing them out from a very hot oven to the cold air and giving them less chance to dry out. So leaving them in the oven, as I said, you can do up to overnight, will just help them to dry out. Now they look good, but do they taste good? And the candies kind of melted over the meringues, so I'm sure they'll be coated in peppermint flavor. Actually, I'm not going to eat it on camera, but let me take one to Paul, and we're going to try them right now. I'll be right back. All right, I am here to tell you they are a success. I am going to reduce the oven temperature though, because they got a little browner than they should have in that short amount of time. So I'm going to turn that down, but that will be on the recipe on my blog, and that link to that is down below. But it has some great peppermint flavor from the candies and no peppermint extract to mess with the egg whites. So after all of those failures, I finally got a success. What a relief. So I'm sure you want to know what the nutritional facts are for this. You can have up to 3 of these for 0 bites. I mean, there's egg whites, there's sweetener, tiny bit of cream of tartar and salt. The only bites or points are going to come from the candies, and those are spread out. I only am going to put 10 on the recipe because that's all I really needed. But you can have up to 3 for 0, you can have up to 9 for 1. Now, if you're following calories, each one, 7 calories. That's it, 7 calories. If you're following macros, 0 grams of fat, 8.7 grams of carbs, and the protein is 0.4 grams. So, finally, after a lot of trial and a lot of error, I have a success. So I hope you enjoyed watching all of my defeats leading up to this victory. And if you did, please give this video a thumbs up. I would really appreciate that. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet and you are looking for recipes that can help you on a weight loss journey. And share this video if there's anyone out there that you think would appreciate something like this. And hit the notification bell for the next time I upload any sort of video. Also, comment down below what your thoughts on this whole process were. Have you ever done meringues and used peppermint extract and had a success? So far I haven't, but I at least have a success with these. Also, you can join me on social media. You will find my links in the description box below. And here's my Instagram handle. And there are 2 Facebook groups that I am part of. One is mine, Recipes with Roy, and the other one is Finding Our Way, W-E-I-G-H. And that one I co-admin with Jennifer Lynn from the Jennifer Lynn channel, as well as Bree Coleman from Balancing Life with Bree. So join us in those groups. There's a lot of great tips, tricks, people, and support. So after this long, strenuous day of recipe testing, I think I'm gonna go put my feet up and maybe eat a few of these tasty little treats while I'm at it. So until next time, bye.